Hi everyone, thanks for joining me. I'm out on the California Delta. We're fishing horny toads and the bite has been fantastic. If you're not fishing toads, you're not having as much fun as you should be having. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue fishing here for a little bit. Then we're going to go back home. I'll set up the cameras and we'll do a little video for you. We'll talk all about fishing horny toads. You'll have all the information you'll need to start catching some big fish on this great little bait. See you guys back home. Okay, we're back at the workbench. We're talking about soft body frogs. This is a bait that I rely on throughout the year. They can be fished winter, spring, summer, and fall from top to bottom, and they are just an outstanding bait. They're a genre of bait that doesn't get talked about a whole lot. We're going to take you through the baits that I use, the hooks, the rigging. We're going to pair that up with specific rods and line combinations, and we'll give you a whole integrated system that you'll need to go out and start catching fish with these soft-bodied toads. And by and large, these are a very inexpensive bait to buy and fish. They are fairly durable, and even though they are small in stature, these things catch some big fish. The first thing that I want to talk about is I don't want you guys to be confusing the soft-body toad with a hollow body frog. This is like your Bobby's Perfect Frog, the snag-proof type frogs. Hollow body frogs are just what they say they are. They're hollow. They're compressed. They're full of air. The toads are a soft body plastic. Depending on what toad you have, they're all a little different, but they don't really compress. They are a full plastic bait and a whole different genre of baits. We're going to be taking these hollow body frogs and putting them aside today, and we're going to be talking about toads. So let's start off. I'll give you a little rundown on exactly what we're going to do today. I'm going to talk about the 3 toads that I like to use. We're going to get some close-up footage on the hooks that I use, why we use them, how we rig them up, and then as we get all of that taken care of, we're going to come back out, we'll pan out. I've got a couple rods here that I want to talk about, and we're going to talk about how to integrate each one of these toads with each different rigging and pair it up with the right rod and reel, and maybe more importantly, the right line that you're going to use. So let's get the camera set up, we'll take a look at these things, and we'll get right into the video. So what we have here, my favorite bait, probably the one that I use most often, is the Zoom horny toad. In the middle we have a Z-Man goat toads, and then we have a Demiki air frog. All 3 of these have their own rigging and their own applications. The Demiki frog, as you can see, is a bigger frog. I use this bait primarily as a surface bait. The kicker legs are much more aggressive than the Z-Man or the Zoom. I use this, when I'm looking for bigger fish. It's got a much thicker body. You can just see it's just a bigger bait. So when you need that little bigger bait to pull up bigger fish, you need a little more kicking action, this is the one I go to. Zoom bait, the horny toad, is the one that I use about 80% of the time, and I'm fishing this subsurface most of the time. We're going to show you how we hook this up so you can fish this down to about 6, 8, 10 feet deep. And there's also a place in my arsenal for this Zoom goat toads, and one of the reasons that I like this is because it's a little smaller bait. I can fish this primarily on the surface. I'll also show you how to weight this rig, and you can also fish this down a little deeper. Gives you a little different presentation. You'll notice that the kicking legs are more aggressive on this Z-Man than they are on the Zoom. The other thing is with this Elastec, you have to rig them a little differently, but they are extremely durable. So one of the things that will happen sometimes on these Zoom, I've got one here that has one of the legs bit off here. Once this happens, this bait's dead in the water. It'll start to roll, and you'll wonder, I don't have it rigged right or something's wrong. So, if you've got small fish that maybe in the system and they're biting off the appendages on this, you might want to move over to the Z-Man goat toads. Now, generally, With this zoom, I can catch 10, 15 fish on one bait. But every now and then you get these nippers that bite off the ends of the kickers, and it really fouls up the bait. So, all right, we've got our 3 frogs here, and we've got 3 hooks that I commonly use. The first hook we'll talk about is the Owner Flashy Swimmer. I have a 3/0 hook here, but I generally fish this in 5/0. You will want the 5/0 size when you're fishing a Zoom horny toad. Let's pull these back away. We'll kind of show you how we rig these up. And basically, this is the rig right here. Very simple to rig. It's got a screw lock on the head. So basically what we're doing here is just taking this, screwing it onto the screw lock. When I check these out, before I put them on, I make sure they're hanging straight so that they're right in the middle and that hook's going to come through. I put the hook on here like this. I put my thumb right where I want that hook to go, and I put my top finger on, or my finger on top. That way when I kind of bend the frog, I put it right in at my thumb, and I could feel that hook point sticking in my finger. When I pull it out, I know that this bait is rigged just right every time. So what we have here is a Flashy Swimmer, screw lock on the head, a little flash down here, a 5/0 hook. The hook is setting almost in the butt section of the bait, so it is a extremely effective way to run this bait as far as hookup ratio. We'll put these 3 hooks down here that I generally use. All of these are wide gap hooks, and we need that. We need this big wide gap in here to give us, plenty of hook. When the fish bites, we want plenty of exposed hook so that these fish, when they come in, they're going to hook themselves. Now, you'll notice we've got the Flashy Swimmer here. This is the only weighted one, so this is going to be our subsurface application here with the horny toad. Let's move this out of the way. We're going to go to our second hook and our third hook. We have here the Mustad, and the Mustad is a little different than the Trocar. The Trocar has a screw lock on it. When you're using the Z-Man goat toads, they are made out of the Elastec stuff, so they do not work well when it comes to screw locks. So you're going to have to rig these goat toads a little differently, and you're going to rig them just like a worm. I'll pull this out here. You can see I've got it, let's go through the whole thing. We take the head, we're going to push it in just like a worm. You're going to pull it out here, you're going to turn it around. Same thing, I'm looking where that hook point is. I'm kind of putting my thumb there, bending the frog a little bit, and poking it in there, just doing it really quick, kind of getting this all set up real quick. So that's our rigging for this. And for this one, we're going to be fishing with no weight on it. I will show you a rig that I have here in just a second, because I do fish this subsurface certain times of the year. Now, one of the advantages of the goat toad that I'm finding is because of this Elastec, when a fish grabs the tail on it, they don't get broken off. They last a long time, and you can catch a lot of fish with these things. Now, like we said, the Z-Man, I can probably get 15 fish on one of these baits right here. But once this tail breaks off, it's dead in the water. Sometimes you'll have some warmouth out there, or you'll have, if you're fishing around a lot of spots or something that have sharp teeth and they're small fish and they bite these appendages off, you'll have a problem. So at that point you might want to go to the goat toad. The goat toad is also, I think, a better surface bait because of the paddles on it and these little appendages here. It just throws a little more surface disturbance out. It's totally weedless, and we throw this one weightless. So we have to use the Mustad, and this is the Ultra Point wide gap hook. Now when it comes to this Demiki Air Frog, whole different deal. Oh, and by the way, what is this? We're using a 5/0 beast hook for the Zoom toad. We're using a 6/0 Ultra Point Mustad for the Z-Man. And when we come to the Demiki, we're going to be using also a 6/0 trocar. And again, this has a super wide gap hook, and even as large as this Demiki air frog is, when a fish comes up and grabs it, you've got plenty of gap in this thing exposed, so that you're going to have a very good hookup ratio. And this, once again, is we've got a screw lock with the Demiki. You can screw this in and just use it like that. And this is what I'm going to use when I need a little bigger bait. I'm looking for maybe bigger fish, and I want a lot more surface disturbance. With this particular bait here, I can use this almost to replace a buzz bait. When these things are coming through the water, they really kick, and it makes a nice disturbance. It's not such a loud, annoying disturbance that maybe when you have a evening or morning where everything's really quiet and you don't want to throw a buzz bait in there, this is the bait to go to. So these are the 3 baits that I use and 3 ways that we hook them up or rig them. Let's talk about the rods and reels. Hey everyone, I need to just break into the video for just a second. I want to give a shout out to an old friend of mine, Travis Huckabee. You guys know Travis. He's been around for a while. He's a heck of a tournament angler, heck of a fisherman. I want to give Travis a shout out because he is the one that showed me and got me thinking about weighting horny toads. It was, I don't know how many years ago now, but it was right at Paradise Point. Travis had had a great day. And he shared how he was weighting these toads and how he was catching fish. And Travis, if you're out there listening, I just want to let you know, I took everything you told me to heart, and I can't tell you how many big fish I've caught on this technique. I'm passing it on to other folks, and I just want to hit Travis up for passing that on to me. And you guys think about this when you're out there fishing. You guys are out there at the dock, maybe somebody's having a tough day, maybe they ask you a question, you know, if you can give them a hand, share your information. Those guys will always remember you. If they go out and catch a few fish, they're not going to catch your fish out there, but they're going to go out and have a good time. And it's just a good thing to do. I guarantee you, if you share your information, it's going to come back to you sooner or later. So thanks, Travis. We'll get back to our regular scheduled programming. Okay, let's talk about rods and the lines that we're using on these rods. I've got 2 rods here that I'm going to just kind of use for demonstration purposes. And generally, for maybe some of the beginners, when you're looking at a rod, we're looking at the butt section here. This is where all the power is in the rod. And most any rod that you buy today, a decent rod, is going to have plenty of power down here in the butt section to pull most fish out. Now, if you're getting fish over 7, 8, 9, 10 pounds, you're going to probably have to go with a different rod, but we're talking about those standard 2 to 5 pound fish. So what I look at when I'm looking at a rod is how stiff the tip is. The first 2 feet of the rod, that's going to be what helps you set the hook. It's going to give you the feel of the rod, and it's going to give you a lot of the sensitivity of the rod. That's the first 2 feet of the rod. The next 2 feet of the rod, this is going to help you not only set the hook, but it's going to help you keep the fish pinned. Now, if you are using a horny toad or any type of toad and you're setting hook and you're losing fish, if you lose them on the set, it's probably due to having too soft of a rod on the tip. If you hook the fish and you get it halfway in and it starts jumping and it pops off, it's probably due to the midsection of the rod, because this is the rod that as you're the section of the rod that as you're pulling them in, it pins the rod into the fish, and as they jump and start moving their head, it keeps them pinned. But on this rod, it's a rod that I like fishing horny toads because it has a very much of a faster action. So as I set with this rod, I'm able to have that hook penetrate. So the first 18 inches of this rod is a faster rod when I set the hook, especially when I am using straight braid. And I highly recommend fishing either straight braid for toad fishing or straight braid onto about a 3-foot leader. If you're using mono or fluoro line, you're going to need a stiffer rod that has a little more backbone and a little faster tip to it. And that's making up for the stretch in the line. When I'm here on the Delta, I'm using all 40-pound braid, straight to the bait, or maybe 2 to 3 feet of 18-pound Maxima mono. What that allows me to do, it allows me to use a little lighter rod to have more fun. And because this is not a super stiff rod, but I've got a fairly fast rod, and I have braided line, there's no stretch in the line, I can still set really hard on this fish and hook them. It's got plenty of midsection to where once I get that fish on and I've got it loaded up and the fish starts moving around, this acts like a big coil so that I don't lose the fish. It can shake his head, it can do everything at once. And if it's a really big fish, like I said, this last, half of the rod here, a lot of times, both of these rods, when I've got a 5, 6, 7 pound fish, they're bent almost down to the last eye of the hook, or eye of the rod here. And it's a lot of fun. One of the things that's fun for me about catching fish on lighter rods is the rod's bent over, and you always think you have a big fish. So if it turns out to be a 3 or 4 pound fish, you just think you caught a 5 or 6 pound fish. When you get that 6, 7, 8 pound fish and you go, oh boy, I wish I had a little more rod. These rods will take care of the situation as long as you have a good knot. You've got 40-pound braid. A lot of times I'll even go 50 or 60-pound braid, especially when I'm fishing this Demiki air frog. But that's the key. Is don't go out and buy a bunch of rods. You know the rods that you're using. You know your own rods. If you're having problems landing fish or hooking fish, think about the tip, think about the midsection of the rod, and then maybe just switch out that bait on a different rod. If you're still having problems and you're using monoline, get that monoline off of there and go to a braid line. And I think by moving around with some of your rods that may be worming rods, they may be crankbait rods, you don't want to go to a real soft jerkbait rod or a drop shot rod with these frogs. It's got to be a medium to medium heavy rod and something that has some setting power. But if you have that and you just fool around with some of the rods that you already have on your boat, you're going to find the rod that, man, this feels real good when I set the hook, and man, it seems like every time I hook a fish, I land it. That's the rod you want to dedicate to your frogs. And if you want to rinse, wash, and repeat, if you need a couple of those different rods, you'll usually find that the rods that you fish with horny toads have other purposes. You'll be able to fish horny toads, you'll be able to fish maybe whopper ploppers, you'll be able to fish light worm applications, you'll also be able to fish some crankbaits with them, maybe even some jerkbaits. So don't spend a lot of money getting new stuff, just use what you have and adapt it to what your fishing situation is. Thank you guys so much for staying with me on this. If you haven't subscribed, make sure you subscribe. And let me know how you do. If you have any problems with anything I said, send me a comment, and I try to answer all the comments, especially if you guys have a question. So send me a question, leave a comment, and we will we'll try to get that answered for you. Until then, get out there, have some fun, and we'll see you guys on the river.